Starting a side gig is a great way to grow your wealth. It's a great way to gain new experience and to open new doors. I can think off the top of my head about a dozen different reasons as to why starting a side gig is a really great thing to do. But in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the single most important reason why I think every single person should consider starting a side hustle. And I'll forewarn you, it's not the reason that you probably think it is. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down why starting a side hustle is the smartest thing you can do in 2022, how exactly to go about utilizing this in the best way possible, and how you can get started today. So let's get started. Now, before we dig in, I must give a quick caveat stating that I am not an accountant, I am not a tax professional, and whenever it comes to all things tax planning, tax deductions, and everything in between, I encourage you to hire this out to the professionals because that's exactly what I do with my business. I am simply speaking from the perspective of somebody that has multiple revenue streams, multiple side hustles, and I know from firsthand experience what type of impact side hustles can have on your life. Now, with that out of the way, let's dig in, and while you guys are at it, if you guys could do me a huge favor, and if you could hit the like button and hit the notification bell for the YouTube algorithm, I would greatly appreciate it. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely see the value in having a traditional 9-to-5 job, a job that gives you a W-2 each and every year. There is a lot of value behind having a consistent paycheck, and let's face it, not everybody is cut out for entrepreneurship, and that's totally okay. But if you're somebody that has a W-2 and you're not interested in pursuing a side hustle or a side gig or starting a business, I still encourage you to watch this video because what I'm going to be talking about today will truly change the trajectory of your finances. Because what I want to talk about comes down to taxes. Now, let me explain. When you have a traditional W-2, meaning you go to a 9-to-5 and you work for a corporation and you get a paycheck each and every week, there are a handful of deductions that you have access to. Out-of-pocket charitable contributions, moving expenses, possibly an EV tax credit, child tax credit, miles driven if you have to drive for work, and a handful of others. Now, these tax deductions are okay, and in general, the tax deductions that you get access to as a W-2 employee are okay as well. But until you have kids or until you get married, you really don't have access to a lot of the really beneficial tax deductions out there. And so because of that, if you are a single individual who has a W-2 job, chances are you more often than not owe on your tax return at the end of the tax season. And let's be honest, that is the absolute worst feeling to find out that at the end of the year, you actually have to write a check to the government. But the silver lining here is that there's actually something you can do to change this, and that is to start a business, more specifically a side hustle. You see, starting a side hustle opens an entire world up of tax deductions that you can take advantage of as a new business owner. And the best part is that you can do this without actually quitting your 9-to-5 job, because you can have both a W-2 and a 1099 at the same time. A W-2 is what you get from your 9-to-5 job, and a 1099 is what you would get from your side hustle. Now, here's what you need to know, and here's exactly what you need to do in order to get started. So step number one, you need to figure out what you enjoy doing, and you need to find a side hustle that adheres to this enjoyment. Now, the reality is doing a side hustle that you hate, it just isn't worth it. No matter how many tax deductions you would get, it wouldn't be worth the time and the energy that you would have to spend doing something you disliked. So it's important to figure out what you want to do and then try to find a side hustle that kind of matches that to an extent. For example, if you like graphic design, maybe become a freelancer on Fiverr or Upwork. If you enjoy cars, maybe start a Turo fleet. If you enjoy driving around, maybe do Uber, Lyft, or DoorDash. There are a dozen different side hustles that you can start with a wide variety of different interests. The exact side hustle that you pick is totally up to you, and to be honest, it's a little bit irrelevant. But again, keep in mind that you want to do something you enjoy, and you also want to do something that has some income potential. You don't want to only be making $10 per month. I would probably strive for something that can make you anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per month with relatively minimum effort. Step number two of the equation is actually start your work in your side hustle. This is, of course, one of the most important aspects of the equation because you can't make money until you start working, and you can't take advantage of tax deductions until you actually start earning income. But you need to start working on your side hustle, and whenever you start doing that, you should also start keeping track of expenses as well. How much money is it costing you to conduct this side hustle? For example, are you working from home for this side hustle, and are you having to set up a dedicated office in your home? Well, this could potentially be a tax deduction. Are you having to use your phone or your laptop to complete this gig work? There's another potential tax deduction. Are you having to drive your car for this side gig? That is another deduction as well. Because if you're using these tools for your side gig, then a portion of these expenses could become tax deductible for your new business. Whenever you start a side hustle or a business, you open yourself up to an entirely new realm of tax deductions that you didn't previously have access to, because of the fact that the way that the tax system is laid out, it gives business owners much more deductions than it gives people that are working a W-2 job. And so by having a side hustle, you kind of kill two birds with one stone. Not only are you able to make more money by the actual earned income from your side hustle, but you also save money on your tax bill, or alternatively save money on some of your expenses because of the fact that you have more available deduction. Now, before you go start your side hustle and use your side hustle as a way to splurge on that new $2,500 MacBook Pro you've been eyeing, let's first go over some of the important things that you need to keep in mind, because there is a little bit of nuance to all of this. Number one is the fact that this strategy really only effectively works if you are using it as a way to deduct expenses off of your taxes that you were already going to buy anyways. For example, maybe there's a purchase that you knew you were going to have to make at some point in time, and you are just using your side hustle as a way to justify the purchase. Or option B, maybe it's a bill or a payment that you already were making, and you can use your side hustle in order to deduct a portion of that cost. A perfect example of this would be your phone bill. Everybody has a phone bill, most everybody pays a phone bill, and if you're somebody that uses your phone for business expenses, then a portion of that phone bill could be deducted. That's an expense that you would have with or without a side hustle, so by using your side hustle as a way to deduct a portion of that bill, that's a big bonus because that's a cost that you would have either way. An example of what not to do would be if you started a side hustle tomorrow, you were making $50 per month, and you use that side hustle as a way to justify a purchase of a brand new MacBook Pro that cost $2,500. You simply aren't making enough money to really reap the benefits of a large purchase like that. So you want to make sure that your purchase to income ratio is aligned, because if you overspend to where you're spending way more than you're making through your side hustle, well, then it kind of defeats the purpose and you're actually just overspending. You're not really taking advantage of any tax deductions at all. Another important factor is to understand what you can and cannot deduct. Deductions can vary from expense to expense, and there isn't like a blanket rule that goes across all business expenses that you can apply to every single thing you buy. For example, office expenses are 100% tax deductible, while business meals have traditionally been only 50% tax deductible. Additionally, to understand your full deduction, you'll first have to understand what tax bracket you're in and how this applies to the deductions that you're applying to your taxes. For example, I'm in the 35% tax bracket. That means that if I was to buy something and it had 100% tax deduction, the amount that I can actually deduct from my taxes is really just 35% of that purchase price. So for example, if I was to buy a $5,000 computer, well, that has a 100% tax deduction per the office supplies tax deduction rule. So if that computer cost $5,000, 35% of that is $1,750, which means that I could deduct $1,750 from my taxes because of this computer purchase. This same math gets applied to anything, whether it be a $100 phone bill or a $100,000 car that you purchased for your business. Lastly, and I kind of touched on this earlier, make sure that you're not spending more than your taxable income through your side hustle, because if you do, then it totally defeats the purpose of taking advantage of tax deduction. For example, if you made $10,000 in your side hustle in 2021, but you had $9,000 in deductions that could be applied to that revenue, well, that means your taxable income is $1,000. You have effectively lowered your tax bill by $9,000 by utilizing deductions. But on the other hand, if you went nuts and you spent a ton of stuff in 2021, but you still only had $10,000 in taxable income, but you instead spent $20,000, well, that doesn't mean you'll get $20,000 in deductions, because you don't have $20,000 worth of income to deduct from. Instead, you would only get $10,000 worth of tax deductions, which means you just spent an additional $10,000 for nothing. It's important when we're talking about business taxes that you are being strategic with when and how you spend your money. You want to make sure that you're spending money in a way in which it can be fully tax utilized for the purpose of deductions, because if you overspend, then you truly are leaving money on the table. Now, this exact thought process and this exact math can get applied to really any type of side gig out there. For example, I do it with my YouTube channel. All of the equipment that I purchase for this channel is tax deducted, meaning it lowers my taxable income. Same goes for my Turo fleet. Any tools I buy, any maintenance that's done to the cars, any purchases of cars, these all get applicably applied to my taxes, thus lowering my taxable income. Now, this exact thought process can be applied to any type of side gig that you have. You can absolutely use this strategy in order to offset some of your expenses expenses that you would have had either way, but also lower your tax bill at the same time. You will have the ability to deduct so much more on your taxes than you would if you were just solely a W-2 worker. Starting a side gig is a really great way to kill two birds with one stone. Not only does it allow for you to make more money, but it's also a great way to legally and substantially lower your tax bill. If you're somebody who hasn't looked into doing this, then I highly encourage you to do so. If you're somebody that has a side gig, but you're not utilizing deductions to the fullest extent, I highly encourage you to do your research, hire an accountant. That way you can lower your tax bill as much as possible. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.